Are you keeping up with all the new tech companies out there? Tech is changing for some of us a little bit faster than we're entirely comfortable with. There are so many new tech companies out there in our little space of the world. Are you keeping up? Stick around.
LIA Administrators and Insurance Services, serving valuation professionals since 1978. We provide E&O insurance with a commitment to superior customer service, outstanding liability education, and unmatched claim defense. Explore our exclusive Appraiser liability education by Peter Christensen and cost-effective seminars designed to foster your growth. Our underwriters, with an average of 26 years of experience each, are dedicated to supporting appraisers. Visit liability.com to discover how LIA can safeguard your business. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast with your host, Hal Humphreys.
Welcome to today's Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Jim Morrison. With me, as always, is our host, Hal Humphreys. Let me bring him back in for you. Hey, Hal, how are you doing?
Jim, I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing really well today. Well, we are still recovering from a great time that we had at Appraisal Summit, and we met our guest today at the Appraisal Summit, and it's a really great opportunity to see some of the new technology out there for appraisers and hear from new companies, even companies we haven't heard of. So let me bring in Kurt Rehak, who's the Chief Appraiser and the CEO of ZAP Appraisals. Hey, Kurt.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Doing great, Kurt. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. It was a pleasure to meet you out in Las Vegas, get to spend a little time with you. For our listeners, tell us a little bit about Kurt. How did you get into this appraisal business? Just how long have you been doing this? A little bit about Kurt.
Okay. Well, thank you guys, and it's definitely an honor being here on your podcast. So, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it very much. I got started back in 1996. I'm an old bartender. That was my first profession, probably my favorite. And then I guess my owner's brother was an appraiser, and so he kind of turned me on to the industry at a very young age. I got my license when I was just 21 years old, and that was kind of unusual for back then. I just made my way through the industry doing residential, commercial appraisals. I've been involved in title, mortgages, and all the different aspects, insurance, and things like that over the years. And appraisals have always been my passion. And I guess after the crash in 2008, I struggled like every other appraiser did, right? I didn't work for AMCs. So all my clients were direct. So I had a hard time for a few years there. I became a chief appraiser at another appraisal management company, and I actually fell in love with it. The money wasn't fantastic, but what I didn't count on, it opened the door to me to be able to start talking to all my appraisers again, like across the country, in a bigger classroom than I ever sat in. So I fell in love with the position and the industry, and I kind of stuck there until 2022 when a larger AMC purchased our AMC, and that's when ZAP Appraisals happened. And
Okay.
that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I love it. I love it. So you brought up ZAP appraisals. What is the ZAP app?
So the ZAP app, we have a couple of them. So a lot of people, obviously, we're on a gold rush here, race for tech. I call it the appraiser gold rush, and so a lot of people are really focused on the 3.6, and that's a big thing to be focused on. Like we need to learn it, we need to understand it. I'm more focused on the ancillary issues that are happening around the 3.6. And one of those issues is the ZAP app that you're talking about. And I think it brings a lot of credibility into the industry that's never been here before. I would go as far as to say that, well, the ZAP app, first of all, is a mobile app for final inspections for the borrower, the realtors, the occupant of the property to download the mobile app, and they take their final inspection photos or repair photos with the app. The app date stamps, time stamps, and geocodes the location of the property in combination with the location of the inspector, and then generates a photo cert, much like a roof cert or a mold cert that has the exact location, the time, and everything, so that you know that smoke detector that you took a picture of actually was at the property where it was supposed to be, instead of a smoke detector that the agent took a picture of in their house and decided to send it over to the appraiser. So, it does a couple things. It's tamper proof, and it makes it more credible. It also makes it faster. And it also makes it a little bit cheaper for the borrowers, which, let's face it, with the AMCs in place, with the technology companies and the appraisers too, we're really pushing up on these fees, right? So it's my goal to like lower these fees, not on the appraiser, but in the industry in general. So if we can cut out some of the nonsense, then maybe we can streamline this for the appraisers so that they can also spend more time behind their computers, working on things that matter, instead of driving 3 or 4 hours to do a final inspection. That everybody thinks we're going for a money grab, but I can assure the industry and the whole world, there's no appraiser out there that wants to go do a final inspection.
I don't mind doing a final inspection, but you're right. My truck just clicked over 100,000 miles, and it's not that old. And
Right.
that's the thing that we appraisers deal with. Now, you brought up, Kurt, you brought up 3.6, UAD 3.6. How did that factor into your design of this app?
Well, I mean, I think the 3.6 really, even to this date, is still a mystery, right? Like we haven't seen it. It's still a question mark. Like we saw some really smart software guys out there that developed some cool things, we think, but I have yet to walk through an entire report on 3.6. And until I can do that, I can't really say one way or the other, what it's going to be like, right?
Yeah.
Because we still don't know. But again, and I think that's in developing the mobile apps and different technology, and I'm working on other technology too, different AI stuff to help review these 3.6. Like there's a lot of problems in the industry. Like okay, we need to figure out how we're going to write these reports. That's the first problem. But what happens when all the AMCs start receiving their reports? How are we going to review these reports? How are we going to process the SSRs? How are we going to make sure these things are compliant? How can we keep the flow of these things moving for the speed of the lenders when my appraiser's already going to be a week behind? Half of them are going to quit because they're just not going to deal with this, right? So these are all question marks. So I'm trying to design software and things like that to make the appraisers' jobs easier. Like I'm working on some time adjustment software that Fannie Mae kind of came out earlier this year, that they have some true tracks and some other stuff that's decent, but I think I can do a better job, and I'm working on that. I'm
Okay.
working on short-term rental solutions, and so I'm working on all these ancillary solutions to help hopefully the appraisers save time so they can focus on the 3.6.
Now, Kurt, there's a lot of discussion in the appraisal space. And, I've said this a number of times and I'll say it again. If I'm the avatar for an industry, it's an older industry.
Sure, sure.
Um, so, you've been an appraiser for a long time. Have you always been an early adopter of tech?
I've always been a walker of the ledge, we'll call it, right? And I tend to just, I guess, with my personality, I'm a bit more creative and try to think outside. Well, maybe we can do it a different way. Like I know we've been doing it. I guess what I've learned as an appraiser and being Gen X, right? Like I grew up without a computer. Right. We had compasses and road maps, and my flood maps, they took up the entire room you're sitting in there, probably. So, these, as we have progressed through the industry, I have always been trying to figure out the easier way to, when I was just doing appraisals, how can I type a report on the road? I was looking for internet connections before Wi-Fi existed. Right. So like how can I speed this up? How can I get faster? Right. When I started, we were going to the Kodak booths and we were gluing photos on the reports and FedExing, right? A lot of appraisers out there like, I haven't had a raise in 30 years. And I'm like, respectfully, I get it, monetarily speaking, correct. Yes, we haven't. But back then I could only do 3 appraisals a week. I can do 30 now, right?
Yeah.
So that in of itself is a raise. So again, I look as an appraiser and as an AMC, which I know most appraisers hate AMCs. I get it, I do too. You know, but as I look to kind of shorten the appraiser's time in order to make them money, because that's how I feel about it. Right. Like
Yeah.
that's how I feel. Like so like when I started this AMC, I just wanted to do things that wouldn't upset an appraiser. It wouldn't upset me. Right. So I can't speak to the rest of the AMCs and how they do their business or their their manifesto, whatever you want to call it. But for me, I'm a appraiser first. I treat my appraisers as well as I treat my clients. I can't operate without these guys. I can't operate without you guys. I need you out there. That's all.
So, what would you say, Kurt, to appraisers about the need to adopt new technology?
You know what? Like, I'm going to be teaching classes online, podcasting. I hope other AMC leaders will be doing the same. I would encourage all the appraisers out there. Look, I saw the software. It's just software. Like, don't run from it. Like, it's actually here to help you. And if you keep an open mind about it, this new form, it does have some great benefits to it. While we're being kind of, we'll call it self-contained in a box or a tighter box, so to speak, it's kind of annoying. On the same token, it's protecting you at the same time with different statement of limiting conditions, different things. So even though you hate being told what to do, and I think we hate that as appraisers and as individuals, we hate being told what to do. The simple fact that we're being told what to do, and if we listen, that's less liability for us, right? Because we can just say we were told what to do, right? So follow the rules, follow USPAP. USPAP's your best friend.
Yeah, no
Live by
doubt, no doubt.
live by it, breathe it. Those are the only letters in the alphabet, as far as I'm concerned. And as far as the technology goes, embrace it. It'll help you. It will take you to a whole nother level of being an appraiser. If you and like the Fannie that like Lyle said, the head guy at Fannie, if you're not mobilized yet and doing your inspections, like you got a year right now, get on it. Like get with Total. Total has the technology. That app is minimal compared to what these new apps are going to do. But like dip your toe in the deep end and see what's happening. Lots of things have changed in our industry. And one thing that remains unchanged in our industry is the simple fact that it changes every single day. And that's the only thing that hasn't changed.
I had an appraiser mentor years ago that I did some work with, and he told me his name is Pat McGuigan. He's an appraiser in Nashville, Tennessee. And Pat told me I was looking at buying a new computer, and I was kind of whinging about how much this new computer was. And he said, Hal, buy tech, buy as much as you can afford right now because it's going to be obsolete before you know it. So get as much as you can right now. Anything you can do to make your process faster, to streamline things, to make yourself more productive, do it. And that was, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and I've lived by that since. Some of the best advice I ever got. Now let's do a little bit of a shift and talk about the industry as a whole. So I'd like for you, Kurt, to get out your crystal ball and kind of
All right.
look into it and tell me, what does it look like for appraisers 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
So, I mean, if I break out my crystal ball, I don't know if my crystal ball looks the same as everybody else's crystal ball, but I think like seeing and talking with Fannie and being in the industry as long as I have and watching the evolution of 3.6, speaking with other industry leaders, it would appear to me that this is a big shift. Fannie is anticipating or has anticipated that we're going to lose a large portion of our workforce when the 3.1 rolls out. So while we were taking data collectors a couple years in the past and saying, hey, we don't need these guys, right? We're going to need these guys next year, I think, right? And I think Fannie's smart enough to recognize all that. And so I think as we shift and move into there, the appraiser is going to take on a bit more of a data collector role where we're going to be getting into the minutia of the different types of the quality of construction, which we should, right? We're building at different levels. Builders are building at different levels, different qualities. And I think we're going to become more of an expert on quality and condition and observation. And I think at a point, and this could be 5, 10, 20 years down the road, I think at a point, the lenders will probably take away our ability to actually value things. And I think we will become more of a highly qualified inspector, where the lenders will start to rely on more algorithms, more in-house appraisers sitting behind a desk that they have a bit more control over. And I truly believe that the lenders would like to have control over this because, in other words, right now we tell somebody how much money they can make. But if I'm a lender and I'm lending out money and you have a credit score of 700 and maybe we do a valuation and that comes back, the appraisal comes back at 800, but I don't want to lend you 800. You weren't asking for 800. You were only asking for 600. And so I just say loan approved because I have my guy behind me that says it was worth 800. And I think it's going to become more of like a individual in-house thing with the lenders where they start to control the values a bit more. And so then the ROVs or the reconsideration of value, we won't have those. But I think what we might have is a reconsideration of quality, reconsideration of condition. And so the arguments and stuff like that for appraisers won't stop. They're just going to change. And the need for an appraisers won't stop either. It's just going to change. And so we're not going anywhere. They've been trying to get rid of us since I got in the industry in '96. We're not going anywhere, but we're just changing. So I think in the future, I don't think we'll be appraising to the number.
I'm really interested in that answer. First of all, for our listeners, don't hate me. I just had him on the podcast.
Right, don't hate me either, please.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is the one thing I've heard everybody say that I've asked that question, you get out your crystal ball, tell us what it looks like in 5 years, tell us what it looks like in 10 years, is everybody has said it's going to change. It's going to be different than what we're doing today. I've heard people say that the appraiser will dial back into more of an analytical role and focusing on value. I've heard people like you say the appraiser will be going out doing what the GSEs have envisioned as property data collection, a little bit more of a detailed property data collection to send someone out with a camera and shooting video on the phone. At the end of the day, I don't really care where I end up as an appraiser. I just want to have my space where I can do my work, and my heart is in the analytical side. I like working on the valuation, those kind of things. And I think there will be space for appraisers to continue doing that. I also think a lot of appraisers, if they stop and think about it, and Kurt, you tell me if I'm wrong about this, one of the things they love about this business is going out and looking at properties, seeing the weird things that people do with their homes, seeing the cool things that people do with their homes. That is fun. I'm not going to lie. It is fun. I'm less personally interested in going out and doing so much of that work anymore because it's just, I'm pushing 60 years old. I don't want to be in the car, 7 hours a day driving around looking at properties. But I appreciate the open and honest way you answered the question of like, it's going to change. There's nothing we can do about that. We as appraisers, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, and then we're going to hear from one of our commercial sponsors. We as appraisers, Kurt, you and I, everyone out there in the appraisal space, we have this opportunity right now as things are changing to kind of pick and decide and direct where it is we end up as appraisers. If you are afraid of analytics, if you don't, if you don't know how to use Excel, if you don't know how to create your own graphs, those kind of things, there is a young person coming into this business that is going to be totally comfortable with those things. So, if that's not your wheelhouse, what is your wheelhouse? Figure out what it is. There will be a place for all of us. I'm going to do something real quick, Kurt. We need to hear from one of our sponsors. We're going to do that, and we'll be right back.
Are you ready to take your career in real estate appraisal to the next level? Join the Appraisal Institute, your go-to source for expert insights, industry trends, and the latest updates from the world of valuation. Whether you're an experienced appraiser or just starting out, they bring you industry resources, classes, and all the knowledge you need to stay ahead. Join today and be part of a community that's shaping the future of the appraisal profession. Visit appraisalinstitute.org to learn more and become a member.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm your host, Hal Humphreys. I'm joined today by Kurt Rehak. He is the CEO of ZAP Appraisals. Kurt has some pretty interesting software that we've been talking about today. He's also one of us. He's an appraiser. He's been doing this for quite some time. Kurt, one of the things that Jim Morrison likes to do to me, I think it's specifically to me, is he asks sometimes what he calls an anonymous appraiser question. I think sometimes he actually creates these questions to be as difficult as possible. But I want to see if Jim Morrison possibly has an anonymous appraiser question that he has personally designed to trip you and me up.
All right. Okay. Let's go. We'll give it a shot. This sounds like the Colbert questionnaire.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we love to get questions from the audience. It really, it helps to get the feedback from our experts. If you have any comments from our audience, reach out to us at comments@appraisalbuzz.com or put it in the YouTube comments. But this one says, I'm working on a tricky land report. The subject is 3 separate vacant parcels. The largest parcel is an old landfill that closed in 1985 and was capped in 1989. According to the documents provided, it's labeled as an elevated environmental risk. The borrower has been in contact with the state of Missouri and the current owner and the most recent reports from the Department of Natural Resources. The borrower is planning to build an event center on the non-contaminated part of the old landfill and a few Airbnbs on the other part. The problem that I'm running into is finding similar sales. I know the lender will want a sale comp to bracket the landfill environmental hazard, but the remarks section where you can type keywords and phrases, I've searched numerous phrases and I can't find anything like brownfields, hazardous waste, contaminants, etc. And nothing has popped up. How can I handle this?
Oh, I'm going to jump in real quick. And say,
All right.
there is not a realtor on earth who is going to put into their comments next to a landfill. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, you stole the words out of my mouth on that one.
I think we're looking at a scope of work issue. You're going to have to expand your research. You're going to have to expand part of the research and analysis you're going to have to do as an appraiser to provide credible assignment results, which means you're going to expand the scope of work. Kurt, you've been doing this for a long time. Are there other sources for sales information other than the MLS system?
Of course there is. I mean, we have private sales and things like that we can look up. It's, this is this type of word problem, we'll call it, is what we call needle in a haystack. And there's a few, like there's a couple tricky things that, like, in looking for comps that you can do now, software with AI that can actually help you guys like look for this stuff. But I believe it or not, I recently had an assignment just like this in Virginia. Right, crazy, right? Well, I do a lot of appraisals over here, right? So, and we are nationwide, but we literally did something very similar like this where we were on top of an abandoned coal mine, and so we had a lot of issues like this. So one of the things, the techniques that we did, we used our MLS system. We know that they're not gonna tell you that they're sitting next to any type of like environmental hazard or anything like that, but this is where geographical competency does weigh in, right? This is where, typically what I do is I'll go back in, I'll look at public records, I'll look at the MLS sheets, and I'll zoom in. I'll not select a date of sale anymore. Forget the 365. You're not going to find anything in a year, and you'll be lucky to find anything inside of 50 miles. So knowing all that, I kind of tend to look at my location map. I look for settled sales, and then I scroll in and I look for different, if maybe I'll look for a landfill, or maybe I'll look for some other type of environmental hazard that may be close by. Maybe I can extract that and come up with a new recent sale, and maybe come up with a time adjustment to move those numbers, into our current effective date, and things like that. I mean, that's the technical answer. I mean, as far as looking for stuff, I mean, I don't think I need to go into the USPAP answer, but clearly you need to say you're not an environmental this, that, and the other. And, I didn't do this or I did do that. Make sure all your disclaimers, disclosures, and everything you can think of, and, all that stuff's in your report to protect yourself, and all that stuff. And what we do, we take our best we take our best educated guess.
Yeah, and there, so I'm gonna just out myself here. I checked out this question ahead of time because Jim Morrison sends us a copy of the show sheet. Couple things I would say. Number one, the Appraisal Institute has some resources. If you look at the Appraisal of Real Estate, the 15th edition, you will find some information on how to deal with environmental issues in real property. I think that's a useful resource just to get your head around kind of the theory of how to deal with these things. The Natural Resources Brownfield program will have a list of brownfield identified properties in your area. Find that, try to find sales near, around, adjacent to that, or even of a brownfield piece of property. It probably will not be in your MLS system. You may have to go to the courthouse and do some research. A lot of municipalities have a municipal redevelopment agency that deals specifically with redevelopment of formerly, brownfield sites, that kind of business. The most important advice I have for any appraiser out there, and I give this all the time, and Kurt, you tell me if this sounds right to you. At the end of the day, tell the person you're writing the report for what you did, why you did it, and what it means. If you do those three things, you're probably going to be okay. If you approach this work in good faith, do your research, tell them what you did, tell them why you did it, why I looked back 4 or 5 years ago for sales, why I expanded to 75-mile radius for my sales, and then what does it mean? That's the job of an appraiser. So does that sound like reasonable advice to you, Kurt?
100%. And I would just throw one more. If we're talking about doing the right job and not getting yourself into a situation or in trouble, those are the three things you want to do, and because those are the three things that do get you in trouble when you don't do those things. The only other thing I'll say this as an AMC, and I'll throw this out here, communication and timeliness of the assignment. Now, I know they're not perfect, and I know things are complicated, but when you ignore your client, you ignore the borrower, and there's people on the other end over here that will file a complaint on you because they don't know what's going on. They don't understand. They only know that they don't have their report yet. So just keep that in mind. The communication, really. I mean, I think everybody in the world's understanding. If the report takes 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks. As long as everybody knows what's going on. But yes, Hal, the short answer is yes. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think, Kurt, at the end of the day, that is the best advice I've heard in the entire thing. Communicate, communicate, communicate. The minute you realize this is going to be a booger, call your client, let them know immediately. Don't let it get to a thing where it's like due tomorrow and you're afraid to call them. Just call them immediately. Say, hey, this is a weird one. I think any client worth being a client is going to understand that and give you some extra time and some extra resources.
100%. Like we just look for. They might not like it, right? But that's my job, right? I'm the wall of undue pressure. It ends right here, right? So use me if you're having a hard time. At least with ZAP Appraisals, pick up the phone, call me, shoot me a text, be like, Kurt, I can't do it. I need your help. I need somebody's help. I need a few extra days. I'm waiting on the county. Whatever the case is, just throw me a lifeline and give me something that I can give somebody to chew on. That's all.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, Jim Morrison, do we have anything else we need to cover today?
That was some great answers, guys. And I think those kind of questions are what make appraisers so important, is those are not easy answers, and they need somebody that can provide those answers. So I think those are the kind of things that appraisers need to be leaning in and figuring out. So we really appreciate those responses from you both.
Yeah, and look, an algorithm ain't going to figure this one out.
No, there's no, all of us would have been replaced a long time ago if they could have figured out the algorithm, which there is none to figure out. So we deal on human emotion. So I don't think that's something we can figure out.
Yeah, no doubt. Kurt, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Jim, do we have anything else we have to cover?
That's it. Thank you, Kurt. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And if we have nothing else for Jim Morrison and Kurt Rehak, I'm Hal Humphreys, and that is your Appraisal Buzzcast for this week.